Welcome all YouTube clan members out there, it's me, Monkey Dragon here, helping all of the green goblins. Well anyways guys, the topic of today's video is The Last of Us game review, and with that, let's go and begin. Okay guys, the way I like to break up these reviews are into 5 different parts: the unique features to the game, the campaign, multiplayer, gameplay, and graphics and animations. And yeah, so with that, let's go and start off with features. So there's only really 2 unique features to The Last of Us, the first being the sound horn thing. If you guys don't know what it is, by holding R2, you essentially listen to the sounds and can hear enemies walking, talking, shuffling around, or reloading guns or anything along those lines, and see where they are. And in multiplayer, my big worry was, oh great, now everyone's going to camp because no one wants to be sound hoard. But this feature gets used up so fast, in other words, you can only use the feature for a short amount of time, that it really isn't overused, or you really don't find it to where like everyone's hiding because no one wants to be the sound horde. And I find that it actually in multiplayer, it's really well balanced, it's not overpowered or anything, and in campaign it actually is a really useful feature. It's not one of those things where it's, who cares about it, you know, I can get on without it, I don't need it. And in campaign, it's pretty useful. So, I had to give that feature an over 10 out of 10 because I really didn't find too many problems with it. Next, let's go and move on to the building. The building, I have to find, is one of the biggest features in The Last of Us. Whether in campaign or in multiplayer, you really need to know how to build. And the availability of all these parts that you need and where to find them and all this different other kind of stuff, really find a nice fine tune to it. Because when you are in multiplayer, when you're trying to find these parts, you kind of start off with a basic kit, and you need to find these parts in order to upgrade your arsenal, in order to get like grenades, molotovs, claymores, or claymore-like things, in order to get better melee type tools. So using the building, it's not one of those things where it's kind of a throw on in there because you don't really know what else to do. It actually is a really useful tool, and in multiplayer, you know, you're kind of a hindrance if you don't start building stuff or finding parts or anything, and you're rewarded for using them. So I think it is really well used in multiplayer. And in campaign, you run out of bullets so fast in campaign because there's not so many of them that you really do need to use all these building aspects and building all these tools in order for you to actually complete the campaign, or else you'd be running around with absolutely nothing at all. So I find a campaign was also really well used too. So I have to give the unique features to the game an overall 10 out of 10. Let's go and move on to the campaign. I like to break this up into 3 different parts: the length, the story/plot, fun scares/enjoyment, or overall enjoyment of the game. So let's go and begin with length. Length, I found, was an amazing length. I'll have to say I probably played this for, I don't know, about 15 hours or so. I didn't do everything I could have, so maybe you could get like 18 hours out of it if you were to slow down, read everything, go everywhere, all that kind of stuff. I didn't so much rush through it, but it wasn't like I took my time. So you could probably get 18 hours out of it, but I only spent about 15 hours in campaign. But I have to say that they did add one of those unique features that I like to call carryover campaign, where in games when you're leveling up characters, you're adding, you know, unique weapon features or anything along those lines. Most of the times, you know, or some games, they kind of end it there, you got to start new. But when I call it a carryover campaign, that basically means everything that you earned in the first time playing the campaign carries over to when you start a new one. And I find that this adds so much more length to the game, because as it sits right now, I did do a lot, and I find that I only got like 1/4 of my upgrades for my character and only 1/4 of the upgrades for my weapons. So I could really see someone playing this multiplayer, or I apologize, the campaign, over and over again. So I have to give the length a 10 because it really does give you a lot of incentive to keep on playing the campaign. Let's go and move on to story/plot. I have to say that the story/plot, it wasn't like there was twists or churns or no, I don't want to say that because there was a few twists and churns, but it wasn't like that was the main part of the campaign. I didn't feel like, you know, if there wasn't a twist or there wasn't a churn, that, you know, that was the thing that made the storyline. I feel what they were going with the storyline is for you to actually feel for your character. Feel the weight of the decisions you make. Feel the weight of the emotional throb of you losing everyone around you. And I feel that in that aspect, they did wonderfully. I have to give this a 10 because when I was there playing as the characters, I really felt for them when, you know, the parents, or not so much the parents, but when the people died around them, when little kids were dying, when you walked into different places, when you were learning about the background of the different characters. I really felt for these characters. So I have to give it a 10. Because in the story/plot, it wasn't like there was a gut-wrenching twist. You're like, oh my god, the butler did it. But you're like, oh no, the butler died. That's the way I kind of felt for this campaign. So I have to give it a 10. I probably said that enough. Let's go to move on to the fun / scare / overall enjoyment. And I'm going to have to give this once again a 10, because there wasn't one moment where I was like, oh my goodness, I have to do this. You know, in the parts where they were kind of meant to be scary, I was like, oh my goodness, they're everywhere. My God, I got to run. You know, there was the parts where it's like, oh my goodness, we're surrounded. And there was the parts where it was just like, get mowed down, suckers. There was not a single part in that game where I didn't enjoy playing it. It was a fun, enjoyable game, and I loved it. So I'm going to have to give that a 10, because I enjoyed every second of playing this game. So overall campaign, I'm going to have to give it 10. Let's go to move on to the multiplayer. I like to break this up into 3 different parts: connection, balance, replay / variety. So let's go and start off with connection. Connection, I'm going to have to give it 10. I don't feel that there was any kind of lag or rebounding or rubber banding, depending if you guys know about it or how you know about it. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, basically, it's where you walk 10 feet or something along those lines, and then you get snapped back 5 feet. Or if you walk up, like let's say for Minecraft, for instance, if you guys play Minecraft, like you destroyed a block, and then it instantly gets rebuilt, and you're like, what happened? And then the block gets destroyed. It's like one of those weird things with the lag. I don't see that going on, and when I'm in these gunfights, I don't feel like, oh my goodness, that guy killed me because, you know, I'm lagging or he's lagging. When I shoot, I feel like I'm connecting. I don't feel like there's a death where I'm like, oh, screw you, lag. When I die, it's either because, you know, the guy threw a Molotov at me, or he threw a grenade right next to me, or had low health, or, you know, I got completely swarmed by enemies. There was always a logical reason to why I died. I didn't feel like it was mainly lag driven. So connection, I'm going to leave it 10. I didn't really feel like I was lagging that much. So let's go move on to balance. And I have to say, I'm going to have to give this a 9 for the reason being that there's 2 problems with the game that I feel are really overpowered. Is that there's only 3 one-hit kill devices. The first being putting a grenade right at someone's feet. That's the only one-hit kill, well, one of them one-hit kill devices in the game. The second being a Molotov to you. That's a one-hit kill. The third being a board with an upgraded melee weapon with nails and stuff into it. That's a one-hit kill weapon. And let me describe why I hate the 2, which is the Molotov and the board. 1, the board is randomly given as you're searching for supplies. So it's not that everyone has the board, and the upgrading in order to get the parts for it is also random. So when you die from this thing, it's like, they got the lucky draw of the straw to get the board and to get the upgrade parts in order to make it a one-hit kill weapon. That's unfair. That's what I don't like, is when there's an essence of randomness to it, and it's no longer skillful. It's not like he did this to get the board, and then did this to get this. So, you know, he took the time, he did it. No, it's a random lucky the straw in order to get these certain weapons, and that's one of the things that I feel is unbalanced in the game. The next being is this tactic. I don't really have a name for it or anything, but I'll describe it to the best of my abilities. Basically, when you're hiding behind a wall or cover, no one can shoot you, no one can see you as long as you're hiding it behind, you know, sufficient cover. The Molotov, you can kind of aim where it's going to go. While sitting behind cover, you can see the arc and trajectory, and you can also see the splash damage and zone of where it's going to land. The unfortunate part of that is if you're a runner or you're a person moving, a person who has the Molotov can actually be sitting behind cover, waiting for you to round a corner, and then as soon as you throw the Molotov, and there's no defense. If you were to try to throw a Molotov at him by leaning out, he could throw it in right there. Or even if he didn't, just straight out throw it away as soon as you round the corner. By you waiting those few seconds in order to do so, basically, when you were to throw it at him, it would land past him and only do a certain amount of damage, where he's completely covered and he can insta-kill you. And it's like a no defensible type of issue. I don't know the right way to describe it. It's just, there's indefensible. You cannot kill someone that is hiding behind a corner, ready pre-land out their Molotov, waiting for you to round it. As soon as you do, they throw it. It's not like they're standing up and you can just round the corner, one hit them in the head, and then you're good. No, they're completely hidden behind cover, and they can pre-plan out their toss. And that's one of the problems with the balancing. So I'm going to have to give it a 9. And I say that for the only reason of those 2 things. The rest of it, I don't feel like there's any one gun overpowered, there's any one tactic overpowered, well, besides the 2 that I already mentioned. I don't feel that there's anything else wrong with the balancing other than those 2 only features. So the balancing, I'm going to have to give a 9. The replay / variety, I'm going to have to once again give this a 9. The variety, I have to kind of knock it down because there's only 2 game modes, but there's like 10 different maps. But there is DLC coming out because there is a season pass, so we'll see whether or not they add any more game modes or they add in more maps. So that might change in the future. But replayability, I have to give that, you know, a pretty good score. That's why it's still a 9. Because I feel that I could keep on playing this game. If you guys don't know, basically as your character, you are the leader of your group / clan, and you're trying to bring back supplies after these raids like you see me doing here, and you need to bring back a certain amount of parts in order for your group to survive. And by you either dying or doing bad, you lose parts. And if you don't come back with enough parts, then your people go hungry or they get sick, and then your population diminishes. And the reason why you want a high population is because the more population you have, the more upgrades and in-game boosts you get, and you also get more customization to your character. You get more hats, more clothing, more little emblems, and all this other kind of stuff. So having a high population is pretty rewarded. So I find that, you know, I'm going to be playing this game for a while trying to see how high I can get my population up to. So I have to say the replayability is bad. But because of the variety, I'm going to have to give that a 9 because there is only 2 game modes. So overall multiplayer, I'm going to have to give a 9. But let's move on to the gameplay. The gameplay I like to break up into 2 different parts. First being the gun handlements, and this includes, you know, how the guns feel. Because, you know, sometimes when you're playing multiplayer games, or if you guys don't play first-person shooters or gun games too much, sometimes the games make the guns feel weird. Like when it's a really huge gun and your sights move weird, or when you're looking left or right, there's this like weird sway chuck to the gun, or when you're shooting and it doesn't feel right. Just these weird issues with games. And in this one, I have to feel that the gun handling was actually really good. When you're pulling out the sniper rifle, when you're moving it around, when you're having the pistol, everything feels like what you're holding. So the gun handlements, I'm going to have to give a 10. And yeah, let's go to move on to the player movement. This includes you running, sprinting, mantling, the way you jump, just everything included on how you move. And I have to feel that everything you do in here is pretty fluid. When you're ducking behind cover, when you're crouching, when you're jumping, when you're running away from people, it feels very fluid. And I don't feel like there's any part in there where it's like, oh, my guy's walking through sand, or it feels like he's chugging along, or it feels like, oh, why are you doing this? Everything feels pretty good. So I'm going to have to give the player movement a 10. So the overall gameplay, I'm going to have to give a 10 out of 10. It was quite enjoyable. Now let's go to move on to the last part, the graphics and animations. And as you guessed, there's only 2 parts, the graphics and animations. The graphics, I'm going to have to give a 10 for the reason being that these are probably some of the best graphics that I've seen from the PlayStation 3 so far. You know, some of these games where like they show you like these amazing graphics, usually they're meant for PC, like if you were to look at Battlefield 3 or a few other games that I'll just leave alone right now, they're meant to be played in 1080p, they're able to be played in 1080p, but mainly on the computers. When you bring them over to the consoles, you know, they look kind of condensed, squashed, kind of blocky, choppy, it doesn't look right. But this game, it looks absolutely beautiful, even on the consoles, even if it's not running on a computer or anything along those lines. So, I have to say, graphics, 10 out of 10. Probably one of the most beautiful games that I've seen so far on the PlayStation 3. Let's go to move on to the animations. The animations, this includes reloading your gun, jumping over stuff, healing yourself, or any kind of animations that you personally have to do or the game does. That includes like opening doors, picking up stuff, the way the trees or something moves along. And I'm going to have to give that a 10 out of 10 because it didn't really feel like anything was cheap. Like if you loaded a gun and it was just like, and it was just done, it actually shows you doing everything that you need to do. Everything that you're doing, it shows it, and it feels like real human movements or actions, if you will. And I'm going to have to give that a 10 out of 10. It felt very human-like, if you will. So, yeah. Overall graphics and animations, 10 out of 10. So, my overall review of The Last of Us multiplayer game, everything, I'm going to honestly have to give this a 10 out of 10. It's only a few flaws I'm going to be able to look over because the game was overall enjoyable. Most of the games that I've played so far in 2013, I played them, I beat them, I did my reviews and everything, and then I just sold them. This game, I'm going to probably be keeping for a while. I love the multiplayer, and I'm going to be playing the campaign for a while. And my recommendations for you guys, I recommend getting this game. It truly is fun and enjoyable. One thing I do have to note, though, is if you're not a huge Uncharted fan, I have heard that if you don't like Uncharted, you won't like in this game. But me personally, I didn't like Uncharted, but I like this game. So, I don't know. It's up to you guys. So, anyways, we're seeing this video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please put it in the comment section below. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. I'm Monkey Dragon. That's all I got, guys. Peace.